So, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to this webinar on Number Properties 1. My name is Rajesh Radana. I am one of the co-founders of e-GMAT, and I will be your co-host today. Along with me, I have Payal Tandon. Payal is going to be your main host today, and Harsh Bhardwaj. Harsh is also going to be your co-host today. The topic of the webinar today is Number Properties 1. In this webinar, we will tackle some of the most challenging questions in number properties. And the questions would be pertaining to topics such as even and odd numbers, primes and LCM and GCD. A majority of the questions that we solve today would be on data sufficiency, but a lot of the approaches that we discussed today um, will apply equally well to problem solving as well. This is a free webinar. It is quite heavily attended, so we ask a few leading questions to make sure that you kind of understand your preparation level. So the one leading question that we've found to be very telling from our past experience is when is it that you plan to take the test? So if you haven't responded to this one, please do so. What I really see is majority of, well, the biggest segment, not majority, the biggest segment over here is those who have their test in about 46 to 75 days. That's about 42% of you. And then we have another fairly large segment that hasn't taken the date yet. We have one segment that has the test in that has its test in 16 to 30 days, and another one which is about 20% of you. Another one which has between a month and 45 days before they take the test. Regardless of which segment you fall in, if you apply these strategies and spend about 8 to 9 hours applying the strategies that we talk about today, you should be able to see an appreciable difference in your performance and number properties. For that, let me move into the screen will flicker in front of you, and for some of you, it should now be stabilizing. You should be seeing the number properties slide in front of you. Let me just see a yes no question. So select yes if you can see the number properties slide. Got a few more responses. Pretty much everyone can see the slide. Well, actually about 20% of you cannot. Let's wait for a few more seconds. This was wait for the system to stabilize. I think most of you can see it, but 86% of those of you who responded. If you cannot see the number properties slide, just join again. You should just use the same join link, and the problem should sort it out by itself. All right, thank you very much. With that, let's go right into the webinar. There's essentially three parts to this webinar. In the first part, we'll talk about who we are, what is it that we do. That's going to be about 12 minutes. So it's 7:04 a.m. my time. It's going to last about 7:16 a.m. till about 7:16 a.m. my time. Then Payal would take over and she'll dive right into number properties. She'll start with a few warm-up questions where we test your conceptual understanding of even odd primes and LCM GCD, and then we'll move on into 700 level questions or the kind of questions that you are likely to get if you are in the Q49 to Q51 scoring range. And then towards the end, we will have an open-ended Q&A, which is going to be for about 20 minutes or so. Now, you're welcome to ask questions throughout this webinar. However, while we are in the first and second parts of the webinar, so while we are over here and over here, please make sure that your questions are pertinent to the topics that are being talked about. It ensures that everyone stays on track and that we finish the webinar on time. When we get to this third part of the webinar, you can ask any questions that are just pertinent to you, not to the entire class. So we really invite you to post outs and ask other questions in the first and second part. If there are questions which are more specific to you, please reserve them for this third part of the webinar. We'd love to tackle them, and we'd love to tackle them properly. All right, so with that, an introduction to who we are, what is it that we do. So as a company, we're about 4.5 to 5 years old. So we were born in September of 2011. Our goal was to help this one group of people who we call as non-natives. We define non-native as anyone who hasn't done his or her schooling from USA, UK, Canada, Australia, or New Zealand. Since then, we have helped upwards of 15,000 students, and I think they're from about 50 to 60 countries out there. The two stats that I'm really, really proud of that we've achieved during this time. First of all, we've been GMAT Club's most successful company. And when I say success, I say this based on the number of success stories that our students have posted on GMAT Club's Share GMAT Experience forum. And the second thing is that we've been responsible for for about 70% of all reviews by non-natives on GMAT Club. I talked about GMAT Club's most successful and most reviewed. You can really see the number of reviews that we have for each GMAT versus the number of reviews that a few of the other test prep companies have. Now, one of the things that I'm really, really proud of is how consistently our students have posted reviews even after the new review policy that GMAT Club has put in place. So essentially, prior to October of 2015, anyone who was a member on GMAT Club could go and post a review. Post 2000 and October of 2015, a person could post a review only if you satisfied one of these criteria. A, you actually needed a valid score report, or you needed to have been a member for upwards of 2 years, or you should have been a very active member on the forum, or you should have a valid .edu email address. Fundamentally, the folks at GMAT Club wanted to make sure that if you are posting a review, you had actually benefited from the course. The goal was to make reviews a lot more useful. Okay. Since then, about 369 reviews have been posted for all the test prep companies, and we have accounted for the lion's share of all the reviews. So about 56% of all reviews have been for e-GMAT, and some of the other ones, basically you can really see the number of reviews that have been posted for other test prep companies. Another piece, when you look at the consistency of review, so we kind of looked at this and said, hey, this new review policy is quite stringent. Let's see the impact that this policy has had on the number of reviews that are being posted. So what we did was we compared two time periods, October of 2015 to April of 2016, and October of 2014 to April of 2015. So the same 6-month time periods. So you can really see the two colors representing the two time periods. What we found was when we compare those two time periods, the number of reviews for e-GMAT went down by about 20, so about 10% or so. But the number of reviews for other prep companies went down a lot more. So for Veritas Prep, they went down by about 70%, and for Magoosh, they went down by about 50%. So this is something that I'm really proud of. I really thank our students for consistently posting the reviews for our courses. So why are our students so successful? I think there are three fundamental reasons for the success of our students. First of all, the most important reason is the way in which we impart learning. We spend a lot of time and energy in building and developing technology, and we developed this architecture called the progressive learning architecture, in which we make sure you start at the right point, you learn continuously, and you get feedback every 25 minutes of your learning. Now, how many of you over here, let me ask a poll question. How many of you over here are participating in the distance, speed, and time trial that we launched on Friday? Is anyone over here from that group? All right, about 45% of you. A few people saying not yet. I think that the trial's almost full from what I understand with the numbers. Okay, so about 35%, 37% of you are participating. What you see in that architecture is the next generation of this progressive learning architecture. And when you go through a few concepts, you'll really experience that. The second reason why our students are very successful is the way in which we impart learning. Everything that we do is beautifully audiovisual. What it really means is we not only engage your ability to read, but also your audio as well as your visual cortex. Fundamentally, we make learning a lot more efficient and a lot more fun than just reading books out there. When you learn using audiovisual methods, you're able to retain things a lot better, and you're able to apply what you've retained on real GMAT-like problems. The third reason why we're very successful is the way in which we impart learning. Each and every course that we offer has this unparalleled focus on core skills. Core skills are these foundation skills that you need to be able to solve questions, and you'll see some of this in the first part of the session when Pyle talks about some of the basics of number properties. Every e-GMAT course that we offer covers right from the core foundation to the most advanced concepts and has this unparalleled focus on application in which we tell you what you need to do in step one, what you need to do in step two, and so on and so forth. So there's this consistency across courses that allow you to apply the concepts a lot better. Since this is a quant focused webinar, I'm going to talk about our quant courses over here. We fundamentally offer two kinds of courses. The first kind of course that we offer is a pure play online course. So any course that ends with this word online is a pure play online course. Our online courses are designed for people who want to learn at their own pace. Our online courses are a lot more efficient than just purely learning from books. They cover everything from the basics to the most advanced application of concepts, and they provide excellent value. And you see examples of online courses as Verbal, Quant, GMAT Online, and all of our individual courses are self-paced learning courses. Our live courses are built on the foundation of online courses. So every online course, every online package to be more precise, has a corresponding live package as well. So every live package includes the online course and it adds live instructor interaction. Online courses, or live courses, also come with guaranteed score improvement, and they provide an amazing flexibility with regards to your taking the courses. Examples again are Verbal Live, Quant Live, as well as GMAT Live. So a flagship online course for Quant is Quant Online. It includes 5 courses in Quant, from number properties, algebra, to advanced topics, which includes PNC, probability, etc. You get a lot of practice questions. So you get upwards of 2,000 practice questions. You get 5 full-length mocks as well. So and because we've just launched our next generation of architecture in the trial mode, we are offering Quant Online for $99. This course is essentially designed for folks who start in the Q40 to Q48 range. Now remember, this is the starting point. If you start in the Q40 to Q48 range, this is a course that can get you to Q50, Q51. Depending on where you start from, you can practically ace the entire quant section in as few as 50 hours. You get Quant Scholaranium, which is, in the quant section, it's the most appreciated and the highest rated testing tool on GMAT Club. And if you're looking for individual courses, you can buy them for $29. Our live course for Quant is Quant Live Prep. It's designed for again, the same folks starting in the Q40 to Q48 range. It comes with a very generous score improvement guarantee. Let's say you start at Q45, it guarantees that you'll get a Q48, otherwise you get your money back. Excuse me. If you start at a Q48, it guarantees that you'll get a Q50, otherwise we refund your money. There's no other course in the world that provides a guarantee up to Q50. Again, lots of practice questions. You guys get GMAT Club tests with this. You get 40 hours of e-learning content, and you also get 15 hours of instructor-led live sessions. So an amazing guarantee, amazing depth and breadth. With this course, you would not need to take anything else to ace GMAT Quant. So here's a typical schedule for a Quant Live Prep batch. We are starting a new batch today. So you start a batch either with number properties or algebra. All batches are conducted on weekends. In fact, all of them are conducted on Sundays. The start time is 7 a.m. Pacific, which is 7:30 p.m. IST, 3 p.m. UK, and 4 p.m. European. So when you really look at this, what you get with Quant Live Prep, you get five online courses with upwards of 3,000 questions. And this is for like 6 months, not every month. You get 6 live sessions, full-length mocks, and a score improvement guarantee. And when you compare this to books, this is way better value than books. With that, I've come to the end of my part of the webinar. We'll soon have Pile takeover. So there are certain key characteristics of every course. Every course comes with a 7-day money back policy. You buy a course, don't like it, let us know. We'll give you your money back. You get painless upgrades. You can start with the cheapest course and upgrade to the most expensive one. You only pay the difference. For those of you who attend live batches, you get who join live courses, you get access to unlimited batches. Also, you get access to all the recordings of the previous batch as soon as you complete your purchase. A lot of people ask this question. They say, "Hey, you have this wonderful warranty for retakers, but I'm a first-time test taker." So while we don't have an official warranty for first-time test takers, we do track your improvement. About 70% of all our students are first-time test takers. Typically, first-time test takers improve a lot more than retakers. For example, a typical retaker with Quant Live Prep improves by about 6 points on a scale of 60. A typical first-time test taker improves by about between 8 to 9 points on a scale of 60. And not only that, they improve a lot faster. 8 to 9 points on a scale of 60 is equivalent to about 100 points on a scale of 800. So with that, you can join now, attend multiple batches. You can see the batches of both quant and verbal. I can share the batch calendars over here. All right, with that, I will now invite Pyle to join over and start the number properties session. I have a couple of questions. One of them is why is it that you don't have 500 reviews for quant when you have the same for verbal? It's a great question. The reason why we don't have 500 reviews for quant is because our quant courses are relatively newer. They're about a year and a half old, whereas our verbal courses are about 4 years old. Having said that, there's no other course in the world that has 120 odd reviews for quant. So when you compare the number of reviews that our quant course has had, and especially when you look at what it has had in the last 6 months, it's phenomenal. Do we accept debit card payments? We don't accept debit card payments just because we need payments in US dollars. We do accept net banking, so if you can write to me at rajat@e-GMAT and we can provide you with the net banking transactions. What if you can't attend the current batch or the batch after that? Well, we start a batch every 20 days, so yeah. So we understand life happens. So yeah. The validity of your course is 6 months. What is the process of renewal? We offer 1 month extensions free of charge. After that, we require that you give us evidence of your GMAT date. Now, remember, 90% of the students don't need to renew. I mean, typically, even if you're starting at a 400 level and want to get to a 730, 740, you can do that in 3 months. So you should not, ideally, you should not need a renewal. If you need to have renew your courses, just provide us with proof of your GMAT test date, and then we can provide you with discounted prices. All right, guys, it's 7:19 a.m. I have I've overstayed my welcome. I will now invite Pyle to take over.
Hello everyone, welcome to Number Properties session, and thank you Rajat for that wonderful introduction. Let me just make sure that everyone can hear me clearly. Can you all press yes if my voice is loud and clear? All right, sounds good. Okay, so everyone ready to learn about number properties and how they can ace their such questions in the as they appear on the GMAT. Okay, so what does success depend on? Let's just talk about that real quick. And let me just get another poll here so that I can get your responses as well as I ask these different questions. So, what do you think is the most important aspect of success? What do you think is the most important factor responsible for your success in any test prep? Dedication, consistency, core skills, practice, hard work. All right, all very good answers. Let me just tell you on a holistic level that there are three things that lead to success. The first one is diligence. And who brings in the diligence? Who brings in the diligence? It's you as a person who brings in the diligence into this mix. Absolutely right. Regardless of what book you use, regardless of what course you use, if you are not diligent, no book, no personal tutor, no course can help you, right? So, this is the most important factor that you yourself bring in, right? The second one is core skills, which a number of you had already mentioned that core skills are very important. Now, why are core skills so important? GMAT, if you understand GMAT very clearly, GMAT is a test of application. It tests you on fundamental quant skills that are applicable in your day-to-day life during your MBA as well as post your MBA career, right? And quant courses build your core skills before teaching you any specific concepts, right? So that is the aspect which you have to master before you get to solving any question. So core skills is the second most important thing, which only a course that is as good as e-GMAT course will bring in. Okay. The third thing is clarity of thought. Now, as I said, GMAT is a test of application. Now, when can you apply all these concepts in a very methodical manner? When you know what is the process that you have to use, what is the step by step process that you have to use to apply those concepts in order to solve the questions. And that is the aspect which the e-GMAT Quant course brings in, right? So we first focus on the core skills and then we focus on teaching you the application. That's the reason why you see concept files in our courses, and then you see what we call as learn to apply in the GMAT context, and those are the application files in the GMAT course. And throughout this session, that's what we will be doing. We will be showing you how to apply a consistent process to solve number properties questions. But whatever we learn or whatever we do with regards to number properties is widely applicable to the other aspects, to the other modules of quant as well. All right, now before we go any further, let's just get a pulse of the class to figure out what do they think is the biggest problem that they face in quant. So read the answer choices here and then mark the appropriate poll over here. Let's get a few more responses. All right. My request to all of you is that you have taken the time out to attend this session. So please participate to the maximum extent, because when you participate, you learn a lot, you add to the responses, and we are able to then collect proper stats to essentially teach you the right stuff. So please participate wholeheartedly. All right, so um, very interesting. Typically, what I have seen in the batches is that choice D is the one that is favored by about 50% of the batch. However, in this, what I'm seeing is that choice B and D are almost equal in terms of the reasons why people falter in quant. And that is absolutely fabulous. I guess what I mean is that people are moving in the right direction, is what I would say, at least this batch. When you assign the fault to time, what you are essentially doing is you're not addressing the root cause of the problem. Because frankly, shortage of time does not have any impact if you have strong foundation and if you have a strong basis of how to apply that foundation to solve questions, right? So choice D should never be assigned as a problem for your not doing well in quant. All the other ones, choices A, B, C, and choices A, B, C, I would say, are good reasons for not being able to do well because these are the things that you can fix. These three things are what the e-GMAT course will help you fix. How? Because we are going to teach you the concepts. If you don't understand the concepts well, if you cannot interpret complex looking expressions, we can tell you how is it that you should look at such expressions and how you have everything in your arsenal to actually simplify those complex looking expressions. In fact, we will be taking a look at a few of them in this session as well. If you say that you cannot infer information completely, that is precisely one of the things which the e-GMAT course would help you pick up on and build your skills up on. Your accuracy drops because of shortage of time. This is something which is not the root cause at all. Time is not a root cause, and that's the reason why this is not a this is precisely not a good enough reason for you not doing well in quant. I cannot do complex calculations. GMAT doesn't test you on complex calculations, which you all can see that hardly anyone has marked this as the choice. So I'm very happy that you guys do understand, or you guys have done a proper root cause analysis to figure out where you are lacking, right? So we will be talking about that in the session, and ultimately you can, when you take a look at the GMAT course, you would be able to pick up on these skills as well. All right, which is a bigger problem for you, PS or DS? And let me bring about the poll here. There you go. All right. So, overwhelming majority feels that data sufficiency is a bigger problem for you. Can you tell me why that is the case? And again, that is people do fret data sufficiency questions. But I just want to understand what in data sufficiency is so intimidating. Okay, very good responses. No definite answers, takes longer. Need to consider all given options, need to consider all possible scenarios. Yes, you do have to consider all the possible scenarios. That is definitely the case. However, if your conceptual understanding is 200%, and if you have the right framework or the appropriate framework to approach data sufficiency questions, believe me, data sufficiency questions would actually start to appear easier than problem solving questions. That's what happened with me when I was picking up on the process for DS. And frankly, DS questions, if you open your mind up and if you have a very strong conceptual base, there is no reason why why data sufficiency would continue to be an intimidator. Okay, so we are going to be talking about looking at data sufficiency questions in the later part of this session. And at that time, I'm going to show you how the concepts are just the same. The application is slightly different for data sufficiency just because of the format of the question. But as long as you can apply the process well, there is no reason why you can't do well. All right, now I'm going to skip these questions here and let's talk about what is the focus of this session. And I believe you would have kind of gotten the hang of it from the pre-approach questions that I asked you. What we are going to be talking about is what is the optimum approach for quant questions. by the time you leave this session, in fact, by the time you're midway through the session, you would be able to gauge what the optimum approach for quant questions is according to e-GMAT. And I'm pretty sure you guys would agree with that. What should you focus on as you prepare for quant? That is another thing which you will get probably towards the end of the session or maybe during the session as well, right? What we are not going to cover is we are not going to cover the concepts. I'm not going to be teaching you the concepts. I'm not going to be teaching you why the number of total factors is such and such, right? I'm not going to be teaching you those things. Why? Because for that we have the e-GMAT quant course. And here, let me ask a question. How many of you have actually done the prerequisites that were provided to you? Okay, so about half of the class has done the prerequisites. My recommendation to you is that after this session, please go back and review the prerequisites once again and then view the recording of this session so that you can get the maximum from this session, because I am not going to be teaching you these concepts. Okay. Um, Now, we will not be covering any tricks or shortcuts precisely because they don't work. GMAT, as I said, is a test of application, so we are going to be teaching you the essential process that you should follow, which is that you understand the given information in the question, you draw inferences, and then you strategize the method to solve for the asked entity. All right, so we are not going to be teaching any tricks or any shortcuts, right? Okay, now I know I said that I'm not going to be covering any concepts. However, let's just do a quick concept recap, because essentially, the concepts regarding prime number properties are relatively straightforward. It's just that you have to have the 200% clarity. You need to dedicate some time to get to that level, right? So let's quickly go through certain concepts here, and before we get into the problem solving mode. So take a look at this slide real quick and just make sure that you understand all these concepts. All right, and once you're ready, pose your questions here. Pose your the level of confidence that you have in these concepts in this poll. All right. So I see that almost everyone is at least 80% confident about these concepts, which is really good. All right. Let's move on to our next one, which is prime numbers. A prime number is a positive integer that has exactly two different positive factors, 1 and itself, right? That's the basic definition of prime numbers. All right. Now I'm going to ask you a question. Is 1 a prime number? And I'm going to get the poll here. All right. Tell me, is 1 a prime number? No, it's not. Why not? Why is it not a prime number? It has only one factor. Absolutely right. Okay, let's move forward. Um, let's also progress through the slide here. All right. How about 0? Is 0 a prime number? No, it's neither prime nor composite because 0 is not considered a positive number, right? Okay, now take a look at this list of prime numbers and tell me what is special about the number 2. Type in over here, what is special about the number 2? It's the only even prime number. Absolutely right. The only even prime number. Good. Now, take a look at 2 and 3. What is special about 2 and 3? They are consecutive numbers. What else? They are the only consecutive numbers that are prime. Right? They are the only consecutive numbers that are prime, and that is the special property of 2 and 3. Okay? Now, if you take a look at these numbers 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, so on, what are these numbers? This is a list of prime numbers. But what is it? It's a list of, it is consecutive prime numbers. So take a look at this, consecutive prime numbers and the consecutive numbers that are prime, and understand the difference between the two. Everyone clear about this? Yes, no? Everyone understands the difference between consecutive prime numbers and consecutive numbers that are prime. Okay, good, very nice. Now, if you keep these three properties in mind, 2 is the only even prime number. Sorry about that. 2 and 3 are only consecutive numbers that are prime, and just the distinction between consecutive prime numbers and consecutive numbers that are prime. If you just keep these things in mind, solving data sufficiency questions related to prime numbers would become a breeze. Right? So keep these factors in mind, right? Now let's proceed further. How can you express a positive integer k in terms of its prime factors? You write k is equal to p1 to the power m into p2 to the power n into p3 to the power r, where p1, p2, p3 and so on are the prime factors of this number. Okay. Always the most important thing that people forget here is to raise the prime factors to their individual powers. That is very, very important. Let's take a look at a few examples. Prime factorization. So this is typical prime factorization, right? Now, if you take a look at it, 6, 12, and 18, all these three numbers have the same prime factors 2 and 3. So P1 and P2 are same for 6, 12, and 18. But these are different numbers, so their representation has to be different. And look at what makes the representation of these numbers different. Observe these three numbers very carefully and tell me what makes the representation of these three numbers different. It's the powers. So keep this thing in mind as well. And again, these are the things which you understand as a concept. You understand these things, but when you get to apply these things on a data sufficiency question, and for that matter on a problem solving question as well, you might not consider to add these you might not consider keeping these powers in mind, and that's what can cost you a question. How many of you have actually faced such a problem? How many of you have faced not getting the questions right because of not considering the powers? Right? So again, it's a simple concept, but you have to apply that concept appropriately. Right? Okay, so let's move forward. K to the power a has the same prime factors as k. Why is that? Because all that's changing in this representation are the powers, right? So this is another property that you should keep handy in your mind. But again, this is a derived property, right? So yeah. Now, what about the total number of factors? The total number of factors of any number given its prime factors can be calculated by applying this formula, right? So if you know the representation of the number in terms of its prime factors, you can calculate the total number of factors even if you don't know the number itself, right? So that is m plus 1 into n plus 1 into r plus 1. How many of you are familiar with this formula? Good. Very nice. So for those of you who are not familiar with this formula, I would suggest that you go through the concept file to understand, and it's the prime numbers part 3, I believe. So look at that concept, and we have explained this formula in detail. But for the sake of this session, just memorize this formula so that you can apply it in the questions that follow. Okay. Now, let's take an example. If k is equal to p1 square into p2 square, what would be the total number of factors? Type in over here. The total number of factors is 9, absolutely right. You add 1 to 2, that is 3. You add 1 to 2 here, that is 3 again, and you multiply the 2, and that is 9. Now, let's take a look at this question. What you've been given is, if total number of factors of a number k, of an integer k is 9, then what are the total number of prime factors for that number? And I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to open up a poll. So how many prime factors does k have if it has 9 total factors? All right, let's broadcast the results here. So it's a 50-50. 50% of the class has answered this question correctly. The correct answer is either 1 or 2. And the remaining 50% has not answered this question correctly. So let's take a look at this and figure out why. How? So whenever you're given the total number of factors, what you have to do is you have to express that number in terms of the product of 2 or more numbers, right? Now, how can you express 9 as a product? It would either be 3 times 3, right? Which means that you're going to get 2 prime factors. Or you can also express 9 as 9 times 1, right? Which means that in this case, you're going to get a single prime factor, right? So just by knowing the total number of factors of k, you cannot tell how many prime factors this number will have. Okay, so it can have either 1 prime factor or 2 prime factors. Is everyone clear about this? I'm going to get a poll here. So the segment of the class that didn't answer this question correctly, are you now clear where you faltered? Now, this is another concept that you need to be thoroughly comfortable with so that you can solve data sufficiency questions properly. Okay. All right. Now let's take a look at our next section, in which what we'll be doing is we'll be solving certain easy questions. And when I say, again, 600 level questions are considered medium level questions, right? So we will be solving such questions. And the whole aim of this section is to, now that you know the concepts, you've kind of revised the concepts, let's apply those concepts in certain easier questions before we jump ahead to the 700 level questions, right? Now, what we are going to be doing in this is, I'm going to be showing you the question, but I will not time you guys. Because as I said, I don't want time to become a factor over here, because time is not a factor as long as you have the core skills and as long as you have the process. So because right now you're building up both of these, I don't want to throw in time as a factor to throw you away, right? So to basically throw the whole thing away. So what I'll be doing is, when 50% of the class has put in its responses, I am going to give you either a 10-second warning or a 20-second warning, depending upon the difficulty level of the question, right? And then I'm going to close the poll. Now, when I give you the warning, I usually get a little note over here in which I write down the number of seconds left. And then towards the end, as soon as I'm about to close the poll, I do say out loud that I am going to close the poll. Okay, so watch out for the timer that appears on the screen here. Okay, so is everyone ready to answer some medium difficulty level questions? Good. All right. So here's your first question. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. Put in your answers. Okay. So about 75% of the class got this question correct. The correct answer is choice D, that is 4. And let's take a look at this, how. So you can represent n as follows, and what you have been given is that it has that n square has 4 different prime factors. So what we need to find out is the number of prime factors of n, and the simple answer is 4. Why? Because when you raise a number to a power, then its prime factors remain the same, right? So the correct answer is 4. Now, how many of you had to do any calculations here? Because this question, it's a direct application of the formula. It's the direct application of the concept. So in my opinion, you should have simply read the question statement and marked the answer. But I'm not sure why it took you time to answer this question. So why did it take you about a minute to answer this question? Okay, I'm not sure why that's the case, but that's okay. Let's move forward. Recalling the concept, okay, derived and validated to be sure. Okay, all right, that sounds fine. And I guess the only thing is that make sure that you absorb these concepts to a 200% level, so that in the exam you won't get a question which is like this. Frankly speaking, you will get a question in which you apply this concept so that you can further process the information, so that you can process other information in the question as well, right? So that's the reason why you need to have not just you don't need to just know the concepts. You need to know them so well that you look at something and you automatically come up with the concept application. Okay, so be very sure about that. Let's move on to our next question now, and here's your poll. All right, I'm going to stop the poll now, end the poll now, so please mark your answers. Okay. So the correct answer here is choice C, which about 60% of the class answered. So let's take a look at how we should go about solving this question. How many prime factors does square root of q have? Now, how many prime factors will square root of q have? If you know the number of prime factors of of q, then if square root of q is an integer, then you can find out the number of prime factors of square root of q. Now, how many of you actually considered this as a condition? And I'll bring a yes no poll here. So tell me, how many of you actually thought about the fact that square root of q needs to be an integer for you to apply this formula? Good, very nice. And what told you that square root of q is an integer? Type in over here, what told you that square root of q is an integer? That it's a perfect square of an odd, yes, absolutely right, that it's a perfect square. Good. Now it is properties such as this, right? Over here, square root of q is an integer. Even if you didn't think about that, just given the nature of problem solving question, you would have been able to arrive at the correct answer, right? But had this question been asked in a data sufficiency format, you would definitely need to consider square root of q as an integer as an information that needs to be given to you before you can apply this particular relationship. Do you guys understand that? And that's where I'm saying that data sufficiency questions are not really difficult. All you need is 200% clarity of concepts, and you need to be able to apply those concepts in the right manner, right? Okay. So what we need to find out is the prime factors of q. Now, how can we do that? Let's take a look at it. Now we know q is a perfect square, which means q is equal to n times n, right? And what is it a perfect square of? It's a perfect square of an integer, right? Which means that square root of q is also an integer because n is an integer, right? So far so good. Now 8q to the power 8 has 4 prime factors. What does that mean? What can you arrive from there? What can you derive from there? Sorry about that. 8q to the power 8 has 4 prime factors. What can you say from there? You can prime factorize this further, and you can say 2 to the power 3 into q to the power 8 has 4 prime factors, which means that 2q has 4 prime factors, right? Now, what do you have given? What you know is that q is odd. How is q odd? Because n is odd, right? Which means that 2 is not a factor of q, right? Is everyone clear till this point? I arrived at 2q has 4 prime factors. Now I need to know whether 2 is one of the prime factors of q or not. And how will I get to know about that? If I know the even odd nature of q, then I should be able to figure out whether 2 is one of the prime factors of q or not, right? So how can I figure that out? I've been given that n is odd, which means q is also odd, which means 2 is not a factor of q. So if 2q has 4 prime factors, then that means q contributes 3 factors, and 2 brings in the fourth factor. Okay? So that's the reason why q has 3 prime factors. Now, what would have happened if q were an even number? Tell me, what would have happened if q was an even number? Well, in that case, q would have had 4 prime factors. Why? Because in all, 2q has 4 prime factors, right? And that's the reason why we need to find out whether q is even or whether q is odd. Because in that case, 2 would have been one of the factors of q, right? So q would have contributed all the 4 factors. Okay? So with this, let's move on to question number 3. And here's your next question. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. Okay, so I am going to make a note of the poll responses here, and I would suggest that if you also make a note of your answers here. Okay, I am going to ask you another question which is similarly worded, but there is a difference, right? So this is question number 4, and I'm going to clear out these answers. There you go. So it is a different question. This is question number 4. Earlier you answered question number 3. The language is similar, but there is one difference. So I want you to consider this as a brand new question and then solve it. All right, I'm going to end the poll. Okay. So, how are these two questions? I know they're still easy, I know that, but were you able to appreciate the difference between the two questions? Okay, let's take a look at both the solutions now. So let's come back to question number 3, right? Question number 3, if a positive integer x has 3 prime factors, so what we've been given is 3 prime factors, which means the first thing that we do is we express this number in terms of its powers, right? In terms of the powers um, of its prime factors, right? Now, and 8 total factors. What does that mean? That means that a plus 1 into b plus 1 into c plus 1 is equal to 8, right? Now, you know that there are 3 prime factors here, right? So you need to express 8 in terms of product of 3 numbers. And how can you do that? It's 2 into 2 into 2, which means that you have a is equal to b is equal to c is equal to 1, right? So how many total factors will x to the power n have? You are going to raise x to the power n, and the powers that you're going to get now are n, n, and n, right? So the total number of factors are n plus 1 whole cube. Okay, everyone with me on this? So far so good? So again, simple application of the concepts that you already are very well aware of. Okay, you take the information, you process it. As you're reading the information, start to contextualize it in terms of in terms of the concepts that you know, right? Start to translate the information that's given to you in English language into your mathematical representation as you are reading the question, right? And then, once you get to what is it that you have to find out, you basically go back and then you strategize how can you find that information, right? So here what you had to find out was how many total factors will x to the power n have, right? So this means that you need to know what are the total number of factors of x, right? Because once you get the total number of factors of x, or once you get the x to be represented in terms of its prime factors, all you have to do is raise x to the power n, and that's going to give you the powers of the prime factors of x to the power n. Now I have a question here. Why is 8 not 1 times 2 times 4? And that's a very good question. Let me write this. So what the student is asking is, why is 8 not 1 times 2 times 4? Now, can anyone, would any of you like to take a stab at it? Okay, so the reason is, if you express 1 in terms of m plus 1, what you are going to get is, you're going to get 0 plus 1, right? Which means that, and I'm not doing it for 2 and 4, which means that the power of this prime factor is going to be 0. So you will say p to the power 0. And for some reason I can't. P1 to the power 0. Which means that this prime factor will not exist, right? But you have 3 prime factors. So powers of each of these factors will need to be greater than 0. Okay? So if you have 1 times 2 times 4, this is going to give you only 2 prime factors. All right? So good question and good analysis here. There are some responses which are correct. There are some that are not correct. So yeah. So I hope that you all understand this. All right. So with this, let's move on to our next question, which was question number 4. So now here what we are given is, we are given the total number of factors of x, right? And what we know is that k is a factor of positive integer x. Okay. Now, how do we process this information? What we know is x has 8 total factors, which means here, because we don't have any information about the number of prime factors that x has, what we'll have to do is we'll have to take into account all the possible combinations in which 8 can be expressed as a product of two or more numbers, right? And here's what we get. And all these three combinations result in different number of prime factors. If you consider the first combination, you have 3 prime factors. Second combination, you have 1 prime factor. Third combination, you have 2 prime factors, right? Now, because k is a factor of positive integer x, k square into x to the power n will also have the same prime factors as x, right? So we are down to basically have this number either having 3 prime factors or only 1 or only 2. Okay, so that's the reason why we cannot determine the answer to this question. All right. So with this, let's come to question number 5. And this is where we are now getting into the realm of data sufficiency questions. And what I will be doing is the first question that we'll be dealing with is going to be relatively easy. But what I'll be showing you through that question is how to approach a data sufficiency question. Okay. So we are going to be solving that question slowly, bit by bit. And the whole aim here being that I tell you the approach towards data sufficiency question. So let's take a look at this as the question statement. I'm not showing you the entire question right now. So we'll be dealing with each part of the question statement one by one. If a and b are positive integers, then is a plus b minus 4 even? Now look at this question statement and tell me exactly what is it that we need to find out. Simplify it. Simplify it even further. Yes, now I see some further simplified responses. Good. All right. So first of all, do we need more information to solve this question? Yes, no? Over here in the yes, no poll. Do we need more information to solve this question? Definitely yes. And that information will be provided to you, may be provided to you in statement 1 or in statement 2 or together in statement 1 and 2, right? That's the whole point of a data sufficiency question. When you read the question, you should know, oh, I definitely need more information about this, right? But before you move on to analyzing the information given to you in statements, in the individual statements, you should always simplify the question statement to as much a degree as you can, right? That's the reason why when you guys were writing a plus b is odd or even, I waited for some of you to come up with the further simplified version, right? So let's take a look at that. Is a plus b minus 4 even? I can translate that into saying that is a plus b even? Now 4 is even, so that's not going to have any impact on the even odd nature of the rest of the rest of the expression. So really what I have to find out is a plus b even? Now can this be simplified any further? Surely yes. If I understand the properties of even odd very well, the answer to this question is going to be yes if either both are even or both are odd. The answer to this question is going to be no if one of A or B is odd, right? So this is the level of simplification that I need to get to before I even start taking a look at the statements. How many of you follow this as a rule of thumb? Good, very good. This is the first and the foremost thing that you need to keep in mind whenever you're solving a data sufficiency question. Simplify it to as much a degree as you can. Okay? All right. Now let's take a look at the first statement. The first statement is A and B are consecutive integers. Now what happens then? If A and B are consecutive integers, what do we get regarding the even odd nature of A and B? If A and B are consecutive integers, what do we get to know about the even odd nature? That one is odd and the other is even, right? Good. Which means that we can answer our question, right? Which means that we can answer our question, and the answer is no. A plus B minus 4 is not even, right? The statement is giving me a definite no. That means that statement 1 is sufficient. Now I take a look at statement 2. A minus B is odd. Now, when is the sum or the difference of two numbers odd? When one of them is odd and the other one is even, right? So again, I know for sure that a plus b minus 4 is not even. So statement number 2 also gives me a definite no, or a definite answer, right? So choice D is the correct answer. Right, so relatively straightforward question. The only thing is that I wanted you to understand what is the process to be followed here, right? Now let's move on to the last question in the 600 question category, and here is your question, and I'm going to open up the poll. There you go. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. So about 82% of the class answered this question correctly. And the correct answer is choice C. So again, I'm not going to be going into the details of this question because this is relatively easy and most of you have gotten it. So let's just quickly browse through it. So again, the simplification of the question statement is still the same as what we had for the previous question. From statement number 1, we get to know about the even odd nature of one of the numbers, but we don't know anything about the other number. From statement 2, we get the even odd nature of the other number, which is B here, but we don't get to know anything about A. When we combine these two sets of information, we get to know that one is odd and the other is even, and hence we can find the answer. We can get to the answer. Okay. So, relatively straightforward, but it exemplifies the process that you need to follow to solve a data sufficiency question. Till the time you have not simplified the information in question statement, do not move forward. You need to know what exactly is it that you are looking for in the question, in the statement, so that you can answer the question that is posed to you in the question statement. Okay. Then you take a look at each statement alone. Do not mix up the information from statement 1 into statement 2 when you are analyzing statement 2. Okay. Only when you have to analyze both the statements together, you need to take a look at both the information. Okay, the information from both the statements. All right. Now, with this, let's get into the 700 level questions. And before I get in there, tell me, what is the one thing that you would apply as you solve these 700 level questions? Type in this poll. Simplify the question, read the given information thoroughly, core skills, logic, not move on until I understand the question, step by step approach. All right, good. All right, very nice. So, rephrase question stem, that's also very good. All right, good. So let's move on to our 700 level questions, and I'm going to get to you the first question on the screen here shortly. So it's a DS question. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. And please make a note of the answer choice that you've marked for this question because I am going to clear out these responses before I discuss this question. So this is the next question, question number 8. There is a slight difference in statement number 1, and I've highlighted that difference here. So go ahead and solve the question now. And let me just take a quick shot of this question so that I don't lose these results. All right, go ahead. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. Put in your final answers. Okay. So now tell me one thing. Before I go any further, for question number 7, and let me bring about question number 7. So the first version of this question, um, did you analyze statement number 2 in its entirety? Okay, let's get some more responses here. So it seems about 54% of the class, or almost 50, let's say 50-50, 50% of the class analyzed statement 2 in its entirety, right? All right, let's talk about question number 8. How about in question number 8? Did you analyze statement 2 properly or in its entirety? Okay, so more people analyze statement number 2, or at least the greater percentage of people, depending upon how many of you have answered the question. So, greater percentage of people analyze statement number 2 completely for question number 8. Good. All right, so let's look at question number 7. Is a to the power n minus b to the power n plus c to the power n plus d to the power n odd if a, b, c, d, and n are distinct positive integers greater than 1? Now, how many of you got scared of looking at this expression? I mean, when I say scared, it's like when you read the expression, you were like, oh, this is something that I have to process now. Okay, so it is, and again, this is what goes to saying that you need to be able to simplify complex looking expressions. So when you see something like this, Don't get scared. Just take a deep breath and know and have confidence that you can solve something like this, right? And really, what is the concept that you're applying? The concept that you're applying is that if you raise a number to a power, its even odd nature does not change. That is the concept that you're applying, and from that, what you get is that all you have to answer is a minus b plus c plus d is whether this sum and difference is odd. Now, what can you get from this? How can you simplify it further? What you have to now consider is the property of even odd numbers when they four numbers when they are added or subtracted, right? So if you add four even numbers, you get even. If you add four odd numbers, you get even. If you add two even or two odd, you get even. But if you add one even and three odd, you get odd. If you add three even and one odd, you get odd. So really, all you have to figure out over here is one or three of these four numbers odd? That is what you need to figure out. How many of you were able to simplify it to this degree? Good. All right, for those of you who were not, take a look at this analysis and understand how the simplification was done. Okay. Now let's take a look at statement number 1. A, B, C, and D are squares of consecutive natural numbers. Now, can you write down what are consecutive natural numbers? It could be anything, right? It could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It could start from 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We could have any starting point, right? Right. So consecutive natural numbers. So essentially, you have one odd and one even. And yes, you're right. One cannot be one of the numbers. Here, all I've written is consecutive natural numbers. And because we know that all these numbers are greater than one will not be part of that. Yes, you're right. But again, what we do get over here is that one is odd and the other is even, right? Whatever be the starting point, even if the starting point is 101, we know that 101 is odd, 102 is even, and 103 is odd, and 104 is even. If the starting point is say 1002, still you get one even, one odd, one even, one odd, right? So regardless of what the starting point is, what you get is that you get squares of A, B, C, and D are squares of consecutive natural numbers. Okay, right? So, and you get one is odd and the other is even, which means that statement 1 is sufficient to answer the question. Okay. Now, when statement 1 becomes sufficient to answer the question, what is it that you do? When you go to statement number 2, you also have to find out if statement 2 is sufficient to answer the question. Now, when you look at statement 2, what is it that you get here? You see that you've been given information about A, but that's it. You've been given some information about A in terms of its quotient and divisor, but even if you analyze the statement further, can you get any information about B, C, or D? Yes, no? You cannot. So that's the reason why just by understanding what is the information that statement 2 is going to arrive at, you don't really need to do anything further with it because statement 2 by itself is not going to be sufficient. Right? So that's the reason why you don't really need to further analyze statement 2. So you can save on your time there and move forward and mark the answer as choice A. Okay, so I'm not even going to analyze this statement at all. I'm just going to say that choice A is the right answer. Sorry, choice A is the right answer. Okay, is everyone clear about this strategy? All I'm doing is I'm being very smart about utilizing time. I'm not cutting any corners. I'm not applying any tricks. All I'm doing is I know what statement 2 is going to give me. And because it's not going to give me the complete picture, I know that, okay, statement 2 cannot be sufficient on its own, which means that choice D cannot be the correct answer, which means choice A is the correct answer and I move forward. Okay. Now let's take a look at how the scenario changes when we have question number 8, right? Question number 8 has same question statement, right? So we'll just breeze through it. But our statement 1 changes. What we have is squares of consecutive prime numbers. Now, can you write down what are consecutive prime numbers? Good. 2, 3, 5, 7 or 3, 5, 7, 11. Absolutely right. That is the perfect thing. Now, squares will be 4, 9, 25, 49, and so on, right? So, my different sets of A, B, C, D are as follows, and so on, right? Now, what is peculiar about the sets here? All the sets are odd except for this set, right? All the sets are odd except for, in all the sets, all the numbers are odd except for the first set in which I don't know what the starting number is. I don't know what A is. Okay, so this statement is not enough to answer the question. Okay, now what I do need is, really, what do I need? I need to know whether A is even or whether A is odd, right? So with this, let me now move on to statement number 2, right? And again, I don't really need to keep this thing in mind when I'm analyzing statement 2, because I need to analyze statement 2 completely in the light of what the question statement is asking without considering the information given to me in statement 1. So when I take a look at statement 2, what I realize is that statement 2 gives me information only about A. So I know that because I don't have any information about B, C, D, statement 2 alone cannot be sufficient. So answer choices A has been so answer choice A has been eliminated, and according to statement 2, answer choice B also has been eliminated. Likewise, answer choice D also has been eliminated, right? So A, B, and D have been eliminated. Now I need to combine both the sets of information to figure out whether I can get any further information from it or not. So now I have to analyze statement 2 further, right? Because if I combine statements 1 and 2, what I will get is I may get some information about A, right? So A to the power 4 is the dividend, and I have the divisor, and I have the quotient, and I have the remainder as well, right? So we need to find as much as we can about A. Now what do we know about R? So this, all I've written over here is A to the power 4 when divided by 200 has the quotient R. So A to the power 4 is equal to 200 into 1 plus R, right? Now I go further here. R, what are the properties of R? R is less than 200. Why is R less than 200? Because my divisor is 1, right? So sorry, because my divisor is 200, right? Okay, so now I go further. What I get to know is that A to the power 4 cannot be more than 400. Why? Because the quotient is 1, right? So I have my limits for A to the power 4 as being between 200 and 400. Now I already know that A cannot be equal to 1, right? So I start to substitute different values, different possible values of A. Let's put in A is equal to 2. If A is equal to 2, A to the power 4 is 16, which does not belong in this range. If A is equal to 3, then A to the power 4 is 81, which again does not belong in this range. If A is equal to 4, then A to the power 4 is 256, which does belong in this range. So the only value of A that satisfies the information given in statement 2 is 4, which means that the set that I have here is the first set, which is, okay, so this part we've already done. The set that we get here is is the first one, which means 3 of the numbers are odd, which means that we have been able to answer the question. So both together are sufficient. Okay, so the correct answer here is choice C, which only about 43% of the class could mark. So is everyone clear about how we went about solving these two questions? And how the approach was different given what we are learning from the statement 1? Okay, so what's the learning from this question? Okay, what's the learning from this question? To simplify is the key. Yes. Yes, powers don't matter. That was from the question statement analysis. Now, I'm not sure why one of you is saying that both statements are inconsistent. So I would appreciate if you could post your doubt in the Q&A part so that Harsh can help address that doubt. Read question carefully and break it. Analyze both statements completely. Again, analyze both statements completely, yes, but be smart about that analysis. As we looked at in question number 7, you didn't need to explain, you didn't need to simplify question number statement 2 completely, as long as you knew what information it provides and what information it does not provide. Okay, basics need to be very clear, yes. All right, so with this, let's move on to our next question, and this is the second last question of this session. So let's take a look at this. All right. I'm going to end the poll now. Okay, so, oops, sorry about that. Can you guys put in your answers once again? For some reason, it just got reset. Thank you. All right. So let me broadcast the results and poll broadcast. All right. So how was this question? Type in over here. If I told you that the correct answer is choice D, would any of your responses change? D as in dog. So only about 18% of the class was able to answer this question correctly. So let's take a look at where you faltered, right? Okay. So what is the remainder when b is divided by a if a and b are consecutive perfect squares and b is greater than a? So really what we have is we have been given b is greater than a and b are consecutive perfect squares. Now what are consecutive numbers? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So squares would be 1, 4, 9, 16, 15, 25. So these are my possible sets, right? So really in this, what we have to find out is remainder for b by a. Now, to find that out, I really need to know the values of B and A, right? So that is my conclusion here, that for me to answer this question statement, I need to know the actual values of B and A, right? So let's move on to statement number 1. Both A and B are squares of prime numbers. Now what do I have from question statement? That these are consecutive squares. Now what do I know? I know that these are squares of prime numbers. So what would this information tell me? That the two possible numbers here are 4 and 9. Absolutely right. So if I combine these two, what I get is that they have to be squares of prime consecutive numbers, right? Which means squares of 2 and 3, which means my values of A and B are now known as 4 and 9, so I can calculate the remainder. So statement 1 is sufficient. So those of you who marked choice A, and so those of you who marked choice E and B, do you guys understand where you faltered? So my question is, and please answer in the yes no poll, those of you who marked choices B and E, you guys thought that that statement 1 is not sufficient. So do you guys understand why statement 1 is sufficient? So I have a question here. Oh, there was a question here which changed to no. Why can't we consider 5 and 7? We can't consider 5 and 7 because 5 and 7 are not consecutive numbers, right? The condition that you have over here is that they are squares of consecutive numbers. That's from the question statement. And by the way, statement number 1 says that they are squares of prime numbers. So you need to combine the two, which gets you to 2 and 3 as the only possible condition. 3 and 4 is not possible because 4 is not a prime number, right? They have to be consecutive prime numbers. Okay? And again, that is the beauty of this. It's very simple concept, right? Very simple concept, but you need to apply that concept in a proper manner over here. The statement 1 says only prime numbers, but the question statement says consecutive numbers. So a thing which is very much applicable for DS questions is that you always have to consider the question statement as a given information. Okay? So very important. Don't forget what the question statement provided you. All right. So with this, let's come to statement 2. Both A and B have 3 positive factors. Now, what does that tell us? When you say 3 positive factors, it means that it's giving you information about, what is this statement giving you information about? What concept do I need to apply here? Don't give me the conclusion. Tell me the concept that I need to apply here. Be more specific. Prime factorization, what about number of factors formula? Absolutely right. That is the concept that I'm applying here. Number of total factors, right? So if I've been given that there are 3 positive factors, what that tells me is that I need to apply the formula for total number of factors, right? So number of total factors, sorry. So 3 into 1, right? Which means 2 plus 1 into 0 plus 1, which means that my A is square of a prime number. Likewise, I get B is square of a prime number. So really, from given that in the question statement, I know that A and B are consecutive squares. According to statement 2, I know that A and B are squares of prime numbers. What I get again is that A and B are squares of 2 and 3. So A and B are 4 and 9, which means values of A and B are known. So now, all the people who did not mark choice D and B for that matter, do you guys understand where you faltered? If yes, tell me, where did you falter? I'm not sure I understand. What do you mean by repeat B? So in this question, what you have been given, so how many of you want me to repeat the analysis? Repeat the analysis for statement 2. Okay, let me repeat it then. Um, where did you guys falter? So tell me, what part did you not understand? Do you guys understand why we are applying the formula for total number of factors? Can I use 3 and 5? The number are consecutive. How are 3 and 5 consecutive? The difference between 3 and 5 is 2. How are they consecutive numbers? These are consecutive prime numbers, not consecutive numbers that are prime. The first statement tells you that, question statement tells you that A and B are consecutive squares. That means you have to take a list of consecutive numbers and then square them. Okay? What this statement is telling you, statement 2, after you, so is everyone clear about how A and B are squares of prime numbers? Yes or no? Is everyone clear about how A and B are squares of prime numbers? Okay, good. So if you understand that A and B are squares of prime numbers, all you have to do is that this gets you to the level of statement 1. Statement 1 also said the same thing, that A and B are squares of prime numbers. All you have to do is combine the information that question statement provides you and combine with the information that statement 2 provides you. So question statement tells you that A and B are consecutive squares. Question statement 2 tells you that A and B are squares of prime numbers. So you combine the two and you get that 2 and 3 are the only consecutive numbers that are prime. Okay? Where is it mentioned in statement 2 about the numbers being prime? If you take a look at this, we expressed from the total number of factors, we expressed the number in terms of the product of prime factors. And we got the power as well. So we got A is equal to P1 square, which means A is square of a prime number. Okay? Is everyone clear about this? Yes, no? Good. With this, we are now going to come to our last question for this session, and you will have 3 other questions for as your homework. Okay, so let's solve this question, and then you have 3 other questions as homework, and I'm going to clear all the answers. Go ahead. Okay, I'm going to close the poll now. I already broadcasted the results. All right. Let me end the poll. So, how was this question? Good, bad, easy? Why was it difficult? Tell me. Let's understand. Why was it difficult? Which of the three problems was applicable here? A looked hard, so you have a complex looking expression, right? How about the question statement by itself? How was that? Figuring out one. All right. So let's take a look at this. So the correct answer here is choice B, B as in boy, and only about 20% of the class marked the correct answer, selected choice B. And the reason for that is why people marked choice D as the correct answer is because they thought that statement A is also statement 1 is also sufficient. But why statement 1 is not sufficient is what we're going to be talking about, right? So the main reason why you guys faltered here was that you thought statement, at least for the people who marked choice D as the correct answer, you thought that statement 1 is also sufficient, whereas it's not sufficient. So let's take a look at why that's the case. Does P have a factor X where 1 is less than X is less than P and X and P are positive integers? The conclusion, the simplification of this is that is P a prime number? That is precisely what this statement is asking us. Does everyone understand how we came about the simplification of this question statement as is P a prime number? So those of you who did not understand this part, make sure that you understand what is the definition of a prime number. What we have been given here is 1, does P have a factor X where 1 is less than X is less than P? So really you have P is greater than 1, so you draw that on the number line, right? And what you have been asked is that is there a number X that lies between 1 and P such that this number is a factor of P, which means that all we are asking is that is P a composite number or is it a prime number? Because if it does not have a factor X, right, that is between 1 and P, that means it's a prime number because it has only two factors, P and the number 1 itself. Okay. So all we have to figure out is P a prime number or not? Now let's take a look at statement 1. GCD of P square and K is K where K is a prime number. All this is telling you is when you say greatest common divisor of two numbers is one of the numbers, it means that this number is a factor of the other number, right? Everyone understands that? So here all I'm doing is applying the definition of what a GCD is. Right? So if I'm saying the GCD of two numbers is one of the numbers, that means that one of the numbers divides P square completely, right? So what I have is P square is divisible by K, and what is given? K is given as a prime number, right? So what that tells me is K is a prime factor of P square. Now, if K is a prime factor of P square, what else is it a prime factor of? If K is a prime factor of P square, what else is it a prime factor of? It's a prime factor of P. Absolutely right. So again, I'm applying the concept that x to the power n has same prime factors as the number x itself, right? So K is a prime factor of P. Now, if K is a prime factor of P, then can I confidently say that P is a composite number? Yes, no? No. And why is that the case? And this is the point where majority of you faltered on. If K is a prime factor of P, it does not necessarily mean that P is not a prime number. Why? Because there is a possibility that K could be equal to P, right? So really all that this is telling us is that P is equal to N into K, where N is an integer. If N is equal to 1, then P is prime. If N is not equal to 1, then P is not prime. Okay, that's the reason why statement 1 is not sufficient, because we cannot, just based on this information that K is a prime factor of P, we cannot tell whether P is prime or not, because P can be composite, P can be prime. Is everyone on the same page here? And this was the key thing here. This was the key, this was the most obvious failure point. Okay, good. Now let's come to statement 2. Statement 2 is definitely sufficient, and over here what you have is 36 into 20 plus 2 is less than P is less than 36 into 20 plus 6. Now how many of you actually calculated the values of 36 into 20 plus 2 and 36 into 20 plus 6? The fact of the matter is you didn't really need to calculate the values. Why is that the case? Because you know what is it that you have to find out? You have to find out whether P is prime or not. Okay. But if P is, so essentially if you simply factorize these three and figure out that these three are composite numbers, then you already know your answer, right? So here possible values of P are these three, right? Based on your inequalities here. So you simply see that this number is divisible by 3, this number is divisible by 4, right? And this number is divisible by 5. How is this number divisible by 3? Because you have this 36 here in the other component. How is this number divisible by 4? Both 36 and 20 are divisible by 4. How is this number divisible by 5? 20 is divisible by 5, right? So I could do a more sophisticated analysis here by getting these things out. But essentially you see all the three values, and none of the three values are prime numbers. So you get a conclusive answer that choice B, that statement 2 is sufficient to answer the question that P is not a prime number. Okay? So that's about it. Now, there are three more questions in this which I'd request all of you to go through after you have gone through all the prerequisites in this section. Okay, so go through all the prerequisite files. Make sure that your understanding is 200%, and then only solve the remaining three questions, because remaining three questions are 750 level plus. Okay, so I don't want you guys to simply waste those questions. Go through those questions. We have detailed analysis of those questions in the PDF itself, so you're not going to lose out on anything. But I want you to get that complete confidence on the concepts. So go through the concepts first, right? All the concepts that are there in the free trial. Then view the recording of this session once again, so that you get even the minutest of points that I've been making in this session, and then go through the remaining three homework problems. Okay. And with this, I also want to get some input from you as to what you liked about the session. So let's hear some feedback from you guys regarding what you liked about the session, and also what is the one thing that you will change how you prepare for quant in the light of the session that you had here. Good. And I am going to invite Rajat back into the session so that he can answer any other questions that you may have. All right. So in the meanwhile, can you put in your questions regarding your preparation and I will also get the PDF here. Good. It's really nice to know what you liked about the session. So really nice. And I would really look forward to hearing more from you guys as you prepare using the e-GMAT course. So make sure that you apply the learnings that you've had in this session and take that in your preparation as you prepare for quant. So good luck and looking forward to many success stories from you all.
Hi guys, I'm going to share the PDF of of this particular session as the session PDF, and you can also get the batch calendar over here. Where do you get the prerequisites for the session? If you registered for the session, then we would have sent you the prerequisites in one of your engagement emails. Otherwise, when you log into the free trial, you go to the number property, you scroll down to the number properties portion, and those files which are there are the prerequisites. Okay, I have a question from Anirudh. Anirudh says he consistently scores Q49, wants to get to Q51. What should he do? He says he makes careless mistakes. So, Anirudh, I think first of all, start using Scholaranium. And first of all, isolate the areas where you make careless mistakes. And to do that, you may have to go back to the mocks that you've taken and really see if the areas are limited to a couple of topics or just are they spread all over? If they're limited to a couple of topics, you basically have a means to work on them. That's one thing. The second thing I would really say is start practicing from Scholaranium. Understand the kind of mistakes that you make. So write down the kind of mistakes that you make. Start practicing from Quant Scholaranium, and make sure that you consciously don't make those mistakes. Um, Sankalp says, I have realized that I took too long on the very hard category number properties question. I think very hard categories is a part of a quant scholaranium and still get them wrong more often than not. Uh, is it is it to just guess and move on these questions on the test? So the short answer is yes, because you have your test in a week. The long answer is the very hard category is something which you'd get only when you're at Q51. So if you get that kind of a question, pat yourself on the back and move forward. The third thing I would say is the very hard category questions in quant scholaranium test you on a multitude of concepts. So even when you get them wrong, look at the detailed solutions, figure out why you made a mistake, look at how the culmination of concepts is tested over there, and it'll enhance your understanding. We've had many students who kind of falter on the very hard categories, still end up scoring a Q50 or a Q51. Is it possible to purchase only Scholaranium? Yes, it is, Anirudh. Write to me at rajat@e-gmat.com. So, and I'd be happy to share the link with you. There's someone who says test email address. He says, I've scored 640 with a Q45 and a V35. If you study only the e-GMAT course and complete it, can you reach 720 with a Q48 and a V38? Absolutely. And that's, I think, should be a piece of cake. In fact, if you take our GMAT Live Prep course, a 720 is something that we would guarantee. Actually, we would probably guarantee a bit more than that, because we'll guarantee a Q48 and a V39 for you. Is the e-GMAT quant course exclusively sufficient to score? I think you mean to say Q50 rather than a V50 or more. It is, yes. Then I have a question from Asti. I think it probably is Arti, who basically wants to discuss. Again, Arti, write to me at project@e-GMAT, and we can definitely discuss your specific case. What is Coloranium? Okay, actually, let me just send you a link to. Coloranium is basically one of the world's most effective assessment platforms. It's something that we developed about a year ago, and it's the most highest rated platform on GMAT Club. So it contains overall quant plus verbal Scholaranium contains about 1,500 amazing questions with the most detailed solutions that you guys can imagine. It has a full analytics engine built behind it, and it has ability assessments which tell you how you're going to do on the test. Where can I get the recorded video of the session? So if you are an e-GMAT student, it's right there in your dashboard. Let me actually send you the link of this. You get this with your purchase receipt as well, if you are a live prep student. Let me actually see if I can get you the video of this. Here's a page which talks about how to video. Then one of the videos is how to view the recordings. You can really look at that. Okay, I have a question which says, how do you prepare for quant effectively? I feel quant is quite challenging too. So I think that the key thing really is when you look at quant, first, quant is overall, when you compare quant versus verbal, if you are someone who's starting in either one of them, quant's a lot more broad than verbal is, because verbal is pretty much 3 sections, and each of the 3 sections is quite confined. Whereas quant is, 5 to 6 different sections, and the breadth of questions that you can get on these sections is quite wide. So I think the first thing that you need to do is kind of do a divide and conquer approach. Figure out the areas where you need more work and the areas where you need less work. That's step number one. Step number two is look at the areas where you need less work and conquer them first. Why do I say that? Because it will be easier for you to conquer them. You'll have that confidence that, okay, you're done with 60% of the quant in, let's say, 10 to 15 days. Then for the remaining 40%, you may have to spend another 20-25 days. So I think that's the high level strategy. As you look at one area, say number properties or algebra or word problems, you basically make sure you study for it, you master it, take an ability quiz to make sure you get to that 70 to 80% ability, not accuracy, but ability, and then go on to another section. That's kind of how you would do that. Prepare for quant efficiently. Sankalp says, I scored 750 and 760 on GMAT prep, but 690 on actual. Any big pointers? There are lots of pointers. So I think one of the things that you could help me with is what's the score split and how is that different from that on the actual test, and then I can probably tell you a bit more about it. Okay, that's a great question. I think it's a question that I've had probably for the first time, and it's an amazing question. I wonder why I haven't had this. So this is from Sam. So Sam, pat yourself for asking that question. It says a 600 scorer also watches the same video and scores 600, and a second person who watches the same video and concept files and scores 730. What is the problem with this 600 scorer? Great question, I would say. I mean, It's a question that we ask ourselves day in and day out, and I think the short answer really is the focus on the 600 scorer. A guy who scores 730 focuses a lot more on learning the concepts than finishing the videos. The guy who scores 600 focuses more on finishing the concept. The guy who scores 730 after doing the concept takes a pause, takes 5 minutes, and asks himself or herself, what did I learn from it? Maybe jots things down. Fundamentally, the difference between a 600 scorer and a 730 scorer is how methodical that 730 scorer is over that 600 scorer. In terms of the amount of time that they put in, the 730 scorer probably puts in about 15% more time. In terms of the amount of focus and the degree of methodical approach, or how methodical does that person prepare, probably there's a 730 scorer is 50% more methodical in 15% extra time. It's one of those things. That's why at e-GMAT we conduct these two strategy sessions. One of the things that we realize is you can impart someone an effective learning approach, but if that approach is not coupled with an effective strategy and as well as good pointers to how to study effectively, then it doesn't yield the same quality of results. So that's why 600 scorer has to realize that he or she needs to take things slow. Sam, does that help answer your question? I think if you are that 600 scorer, you probably know what I'm talking about. I have another question which says, it's from Aman, which says, how much time does it require to go from a Q44 to a Q51? I mean, that's a blanket question, I would say. The answer would vary from person to person. There are some people who are at Q44 because they're really good in let's say 3 out of 5 sections in quant and really bad in the other two. For them, the time to ace the other two sections is probably 20-25 days. On the other hand, there are a few people who are average in all sections, and for them they have to focus on each and every section. So for them, it probably is another about 30 to 35 days. So when I say 20 to 25 days, I'm talking about 70 hours of effort. If I say 30 to 35 days, the amount of effort is about 100 to 110 hours. I am sorry. Um, so I have another quote which says, I've never taken the test and I've completed my graduation in 2003 and university in 2010. If I get the course, what is the possibility to score 700 in July? I am from Uzbekistan. Um, so I think this is again one of those questions which is I would call as an open-ended question, I would say. My answer to this would be if you're diligent, if you do all the ability quizzes and track your improvement, look at data, then there's a very, very high possibility that you're going to score 700. I think this question is very similar to that question, which is what's the difference between a 600 and a 730 scorer? Or one of the points that I talk about is an average guy improves by about 70 to 80 points who takes an e-GMAT course, but there are people who improve by about 150 to 170 points. The difference between the 80-point improvement and the 170-point improvement is the diligence. So if you are diligent, you will get to 700, and you will know when you get to 700, frankly, because trust me, a guy who gets to 700 knows he's going to get to 700. And I really say this because a lot of people who score 510, 520 come to us and say, how do I know I'm going to improve? And my answer to them is, if in 15 days after taking our course, you don't think that you're improving, write to me. But trust me, 95% of the people know and they feel that they are improving. Okay, I have another question. GMAT live prep is 499, is verbal and quant. How many hours of commitment do I need to get to 720 from a 640? Typically about 100 hours. So that's from the guy who has the test email address. So This is a follow-up on the old question from Sankalp, who scored a 750 on GMAT prep and ended up scoring a 690, I believe, on the actual test. He said he scored a Q48 and a V36, whereas he was scoring a Q49 and a V44 on the GMAT prep. So here's something that I would really say. It just seems, Sankalp, that A, you probably started poorly on verbal, or B, when you were doing the GMAT prep questions, you probably knew 3 or 4 of those questions when you took the test. Remember, 3 or 4 is a lot of. I mean, even if you knew 2 to 3 questions when you were taking your GMAT prep attempt, it can make a huge impact on the end score. So it is either one of those two, I would say. Other than that, if you're following the approach consistently, if you're scoring 750 on GMAT prep, you should score 750 on the test. One of the downsides of being super active on GMAT Club is all the GMAT prep questions are out there, and essentially it wastes, it spoils the tests for you. Vikram says, I've extended my e-GMAT course. I've already gone through SC and Quant, but not feeling confident. Again, Vikram, what I really like is to get data, not just I understand you're not feeling confident, which means there's some data behind it, there is some evidence behind it. But I'd like to really see, when you say you're not feeling confident, what is your ability in the e-GMAT quizzes, and versus what is it that you're seeing on the test? What's the delta? And then we can really focus on it. The second piece is, having gone through the course, are you applying the approaches that we've talked about on the actual test? Because there's no point saying I've gone through the course, but I'm not applying the precise approach that we talk about. So yeah. I have a question which is, how many questions do you need to solve correctly to get a Q51 or above? So Q51 is basically the pinnacle in quant. There's no or above. The number of questions is a very immaterial thing on the GMAT. GMAT's a computer adaptive test. I can show you 2 score reports of people. One got 31 questions correct and got a Q50. The other one got 31 questions correct and got a Q42. So accuracy is a very flawed measure on GMAT. I think you've got to have about 90+% ability in each of the subsections to be able to score a Q50 or a Q51. Sammy says, my verbal score is V19 on the actual GMAT. What is the maximum I can reach? I think, Sammy, it just depends on how much effort you put in. I mean, we've had students who've gone from V19 to V42. It's just the extent of diligence that they have is what matters. I mean, here is an example of a guy who's done this. Where can I get homework problems for this session? Download the PDF. What is the max number of high difficulty questions can one get wrong to get a Q50 or a Q51? About 5 or 6? What's the most difficult question type when it comes to numbers? Again, it just depends on what your comfort level is. I mean, for example, for me, I find PNC probability to be very easy. On the other hand, algebra is not, I'm not as comfortable with algebra, although, I mean, when it comes to GMAT style questions, that's something that I can very easily answer. But in general, when it comes as a topic, algebra is a bit more challenging than PNC probability for me. Whereas some of the other experts on our team, may find, let's say, geometry a bit more challenging than algebra. So everyone has his or her comfort zone, and I think and you have problems that you really enjoy doing, or you have topics that you really enjoy doing, and you have topics that you can solve but you don't enjoy doing, and where you really have to apply yourself consciously. And I think so. A difficult question in a topic where you really have to apply yourself consciously is probably something that you may find most difficult. As a rule of thumb, I haven't seen a lot of difficult PNC and probability problems on the test. The extent of difficulty goes high, usually in number properties. It goes high in word problems. So I think those are the two topics. Asi says, please enlighten me on different plans of study you have and which one will suit me if I've covered the course from books and scored 660 to 680 in mock tests. Asi, any of our courses will suit you. I mean, I would just say this that um, till about a year and a half ago, about 70% of our students would study from books before coming to our courses, just because that's what people used to do then. So and they would just ace the test after studying from our courses. So the beauty of the entire course architecture is you have the pre and post assessment quizzes, which means if you already know a topic, the pre assessment quiz will tell you that you already know a topic. So so I think that part allows you to rush through the course a lot faster. Having said that, a lot of people who, after going through the books, are still looking for help, need help with core skills, and which is what our course really does. And you've seen some of that in this webinar already, so evidence of that. Sam says, I don't know, Sam, I don't understand your question. So, your question essentially is about the kind of animations that we have in algebra and geometry. I think whether they match, whether the paid version matches that of the free version, it does. I mean, it's the same people who design both. When we design our courses, we don't really kind of think about which part to put in the paid version, or the e-learning designers don't know that. Which part to put in the paid version and which part to put in the free version. So for them, it's basically the same quality of design that needs to come through. We have a 6-person e-learning team. All they do is do e-learning design. Ramya says, is the myth of getting the first 10 questions right for a better score true? So, Ramya, largely, yes, it is. But I think the part really where I would call it a myth is that you have to get the first 10 questions right to do well on the test. If you do well on the first 10 questions, you will definitely do a lot better on the test, because the first 10 questions decide the training for the question picking algorithm. If you mess up the first 10 questions, it's very difficult to come back. That's what my simulations and my experience with the test tells me. It's very, very difficult, just because the question picking algorithm gets trained in the first 10 questions. Doesn't mean you have to get each of the first 10 questions right. We've seen scenarios where you may get the second or the third question wrong, and then again get a string of questions right, and you still will do quite well. Sankalp asked, my exam is on Friday. How should I spend the next 4 days most effectively? Sankalp, don't study anything new. A, B, revise all the mocks that you've taken, figure out the mistakes that you've made, revise them. Look at all the Scholarinium attempts if you're an e-GMAT student, and again, revise the mistakes. Tell yourself mentally how are you going to approach the test, what your timing strategy is going to be, and then go and take the test. That's what I would really say. Don't study anything new again. Do we have to be a grammar geek for getting a good verbal score in the range of 40 to 43? My friend is reading a Shakespeare book and Da Vinci books. Is it even 1% necessary for increasing vocabulary on reading comprehension? I think, Sam, uh, short answer, no. There's no relationship between Shakespeare and being good in business. GMAT really tests clear and logical thinking. It doesn't really test vocabulary. Unlike GRE, unlike old SAT, GMAT's a very logical test. In fact, that's one of the reasons why SAT is now becoming much, much more like GMAT. The word lists are going away. Similarly, in RC, what you need to focus on is reading strategies. So, if you diligently apply reading strategies, you will be able to ace the test. I'm going to actually share something with you where you can really see what some of our students said about our RC course. Wango says, Rajnish says, can I start right away considering I haven't studied for the last 15 years? Absolutely. That's the beauty of the video based approach. It's a lot more effective than studying from books. What happens if I can't start a batch on time? Can I cover up and I want to take the GMAT in a month? Yes, you can. It's the beauty of getting the recordings. You get a lot of people who are from merchant navy, or from medical profession, or are oil and gas professionals who basically take our live courses, attend some classes live, attend others, view the recordings for others, and they do really, really well. When is the next part of Quant being launched? Will Sukhmanpreet will look at the feedback on this, make adjustments. Usually, it takes us about a month to a month and a half to launch a module. I mean, a module is about, so we have about 9 people who work full time on creating a quant module, and so I'd say it should take about 1,000 hours to create a module. So typically, the rule of thumb is to create an hour of content is about 100 odd hours of effort. So so yeah, again, our focus is to create good, high quality animations. We don't like writing on a slide. It's just I don't believe it's the right way to do things. You learn most effectively when you see the right things at the right time, and when the graphics are appropriate, that's when things get cemented in your brain. So. Also, Sukhmanpreet, please feel free to provide feedback on the new distant module. We really look forward to that. Can you share any link that you posted on GMAT Club or BTG in relation to RC? Sam, again, write to me uh, and ask for the recording of RC1 session if you have not looked at it. All right. All right, guys, with that, I want to thank everyone for being here. I appreciate your time that you've taken out for attending this webinar. Hopefully, you've benefited from it. And I do hope that you try the free trial out and see if this course is the right fit for you. Once again, we are there to help you get to your target score and even beyond that. So you'll see some very interesting things from us, which will help you get into the school of your choosing. Till then, good luck and study well. For those of you who are mothers out there, I wish you a very, very happy Mother's Day. For those of you who are fathers like me, make sure that you make your wife's day and your mother's day worthwhile. Thank you very much, and have a good Sunday.